We all experience challenging and difficult situations in life. In the face of these complexities, it is not always clear how to respond, what to do, or what to avoid. It's easy to get stuck in these moments and stop moving forward in life. Wholeness with Naomi is a program that explores our experiences with such encounters and provides tools and strategies that can enable anyone facing these hardships to continue walking their path in life. We can't wait to meet you on this journey. Tune in, your life is about to change for the better. Welcome to our program, Wholeness with Naomi, where we talk about difficult and sometimes different situations that you may find yourself in. More importantly, we talk about some of the tools that you can use as you navigate in these difficult and different parts that you may be finding yourself in. Failure sometimes can make you question so many things, sometimes even your own worth as a person. We have moved into the year. It's now mid-year actually. We are getting closer to December. When this year started, some of us had dreams, goals, aspirations, and we had resolutions that we had written down to say, at the end of this year, I want to have achieved so and so and so. And you may be sitting down questioning yourself to say, where am I with regards to those goals that I had written down? Joining us on the program today is Mr. Joshua Kumonda, who's going to be sharing with us about the subject of rising after failure. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Naomi, for having me today.
Thank you for coming into the program. Do take us through, when we talk about failure, what are we talking about?
When we talk about failure, first of all, let me just start by saying that all of us have failed.
Yes.
And we have things that we wanted to do, we had our aspirations, we had our hopes, and we had planned our lives so much in a way that we wanted to see things going. But all of us at one point in time, we have failed.
Okay.
And so failure is part of who we are as human beings. But I want to start off by saying that failure should never define who we are. It is a part of a journey. It is part of a process that all of us will get into. Now, to talk about failure and give a small definition of what failure is, I think failure is simply missing the goal.
Okay.
Simply missing the mark. So this means that there is a mark that's been set and one aims to hit at that mark.
Okay.
And when they are unable to hit that mark, we will say that that person has failed. Unfortunately, when we look at the world today, it doesn't measure how much far off you've been to from the goal that you've set. It just says you have failed.
Because you've missed the mark.
Because you have missed the mark. It doesn't take into consideration the steps you've walked towards that mark. It doesn't take into consideration the strength you've used to get close to that mark. And so failure is simply something that people define as being unable to hit the mark.
Okay, that's really quite insightful. Because from what you're sharing, you're talking about there's a spectrum in a way. When you start, you've set out your goals, you're working towards them, there's something that you're doing. For us to come to a place where we say you failed, you were working through it, but you did not achieve just the mark. And when we say failure, it doesn't take into account all those things that you were doing.
You put it out so correctly and so rightly, and the way you said it makes so much sense. To say there are many other milestones along the way, and those milestones were important in the journey to try to hit that ultimate mark. And so most people, even when you're traveling, the fun is not simply just getting to your destination. The fun is also part of that journey, where you stopped along the way, where your tire had an issue and you fixed it, where your radiator boiled and you had to look for a way to fix the car until you get to your destination. And remember, when people start speaking about these journeys, even the little journeys that we take in life, normally the highlights are along the journey rather than the destination.
Okay. And this is not only defined as one moment, but it's as you're walking through.
I think it's a continuum. From the day that you start your journey, where you set your first foot to go, sometimes also determines where you end up being.
Can one live life without encountering failure or disappointment in life? Is that possible?
I think we fail every day.
Okay.
I think, I mean, the thing that we then look at is the magnitude of our failure.
The magnitude.
But we fail every day. Sometimes you fail to get to work on time, that's failure. You don't wake up at the time that you wanted to wake up, that's failure. And so sometimes then, we then look at the magnitude and say that that person has failed because we're looking at the magnitude of their failure, at what they wanted to achieve. But the little goals that we set for ourselves every day, the little temptations, you say, I'm not taking in 100 calories in the morning, and you see something there, you pick it up and you eat it, you have failed. But we become so hard on ourselves on the things that are so big, on the big things that we've set. But if we would realize that we fail so many times, I love what the Bible says. It says, God looking at man and says, for all men have sinned. What it's simply saying is that for all men have failed. What did they do? They failed to hit the mark. So we continually fail to hit the mark as we live our lives.
Okay. You know, failure is part of life. As you were listening to Mr. Joshua Kumunda's sharing, every day we encounter failure. But what determines the magnitude or the impact that it has upon us is the value that you've placed upon that particular goal. Sometimes it's something as simple as waking up at the set time that you wanted to. But it can get big to say, I want to buy a car at the end of the year. The value that you place upon that goal. And that value also determines how you'll be affected, the intensity, the emotions that you may experience. Emotions such as disappointment may also come once you've realized that you've failed to get to the mark. It doesn't take into account sometimes the journey, but sometimes just the mark. Let's take a short break, viewers. Join me in the next segment. Thank you. Welcome back, viewers, to our program, Wholeness with Naomi. Before we went on a short break, we're talking about the subject of failure, that many times we just look at the final goal, but without looking at the journey that one has walked to get to that particular goal. Mr. Kumunda, have you encountered failure in your life?
Well, I have. This morning I actually failed many times, like I said. Even catastrophic failure, when you want to get something done and you don't get it done. I failed. I've failed many, many times, and I could make this whole program about how much I have failed in my life. But I wanted to say that the thing that affected me most when I failed was how people viewed me when I failed. Our community seems not to have a place for people that have failed.
Okay.
That is why they'll call those people failures.
Please share a little bit more on that.
Yet they failed. They are not failures.
Okay.
You may fail your O level, doesn't mean that you're a failure. Very soon, young people are going to be writing their exams, and the results might not come out as they would want them to be. Your child may go through that process of not coming out with the straight A's that you wanted. But are they a failure? I was speaking to a young lady who came out with 6 A's and 4 B's. And the mom wasn't happy.
Okay.
That to that mom, that was failure. I remember when I was at school, one of our friends came from a very affluent family, but he wasn't very gifted academically.
Okay.
So when the results came, he had C's. The mom came and celebrated those C's. And she said, well done, son. Well done. You've done well. But when we looked at it, we saw that as failure. Because our goal was to get straight A's. So sometimes failure, like I said before, can be viewed by the perspective of what goal have you set yourself up for. For this young man, just getting C's was good enough.
And the family celebrated.
And the family celebrated. But for this other lady that got 6 A's and 4 B's, that was failure, because what they had set for her was 10 A's.
Okay.
So I would say that when you look at your life, we're talking about us being mid-year. When you look at yourself and say, I have failed, are you looking at yourself and saying, they have done this, they've done that, they've bought a new car, they've bought a new house, they got this piece of furniture, and I haven't. Therefore, I have failed. I think I'd love to say right now that comparison is the thief of joy. It is important for us to be content with what we have done and the goals that we have set. Now that brings us to the idea of setting goals, isn't it?
Yes, it does.
Because when you then say you have failed, it is in relation to the goals that you have set for yourself. So one of the things that I've seen in life is that people who set themselves goals that are impossible to reach.
What do they look like? Goals that are impossible to reach.
You know you're earning $500 and you say by the end of the year, I want to have bought a car that costs $10,000.
Yes.
Ushangwava kupi kwa uchawana ime kutishike parada kushika when you've no other business, when your income is fixed. So if you then say, I want to buy a car that costs $3,000, you're able to buy it. But you've set such a big goal for yourself that you can't attain it. And so when you then reflect and look back at yourself, you look at yourself and you think, I have failed. Yes, I think you would have failed. Your failure would have been in the planning process and not in the execution.
So problem starts when I have failed to achieve a certain goal that I have, and I also put a label to myself and say, I am a failure because I failed to attain this. And what you're also highlighting is also the aspect of the planning process that sometimes we set big goals for ourselves. You are earning a certain amount of money and the goal that you have set is maybe 20 or 50 times more than what you actually earn in a month. How are you going to achieve that? Already you've set yourself up for disappointment.
And you give yourself pressure. That's why people steal at work.
Okay.
That's why people get into illegal deals. That's why people then find other ways of trying to bring up money to be able to get to where they're going because they were not realistic in them setting their goals to do the things that they ought to be doing. And I want to move on to something that's also very important. There's one level where you tell yourself, I have failed.
Okay.
And you're being very true to yourself, you're reflecting and introspecting, and you realize, this is what I've done, I've really failed. So it might be, people fail in many different ways. I know we're talking about just the economic side of it, but people fail morally, people fail in relationships, people fail financially. There's a whole long and large spectrum of where people can fail. That's why we're always failing, because we're set up for, since we're set up for that. But I wanted to say that what hurts me most is what then the community, the people around you, then say about you when you have failed. So
we are also talking about the goals that maybe people may also be aware of. For example, you're talking about moral failure. This is something that will be within the public eye. Unfortunately.
And so people have said you are mfundisi or you're an upstanding citizen, and people never think that you can do that. And you fail. And you fail spectacularly, where everybody sees that you failed. Before
you know it, it may be running on social media.
These days with social media, everybody knows about it. And you had set such a high bar for yourself. The community had set such a high bar for you. That's why you hear Kuti, the people that are bafundisi, the people that are high standing in communities and societies, some of them manozotinyazi dzinokunda rufu, and then they decide to unalive themselves. And I think it is because of the pressure that we have, that communities and societies have upon our people. It might be a parent that says, I want you to get married and go out with a white wedding, and the child gets pregnant. What do? They look for avenues to do abortion. They look for avenues to try to remedy the situation, thereby making the situation even worse.
Much more worse.
So we need to learn how to handle failure, not to own it, but to say, I have failed. How then do I carry on even if I have failed? Even if the community says I failed. Even if they've put a label on me, where do I get the fortitude to face the community and say, you guys, this is what has happened. I know it has happened. I didn't plan for this. I didn't want this to happen. But we must come to a realization that yes, failure has happened. And if it has happened, what then do we do after that?
This is actually quite eye-opening. Failure is not bad. Failure is actually part of life. Failure is what makes us learn from the mistakes, from the struggles, even within that journey of failing as well. And we're able to look back, we're able to review, we're able sometimes to redo if we're able to. But failure in itself is not bad, but how we view failure is what we need to actually look at and say, is it healthy? Let's take a short break, viewers, to join me in the next segment. Thank you. Welcome back, viewers, to our program, Wholeness with Naomi. Mr. Kumunda, if I'm listening to this program, the question that I would have in my mind is, I have failed. How do I come back? I'm sitting in a space where I'm thinking this was the end of my life. This was the end of this project. This was the end of this deal. How do I navigate back, both personally and also looking at the communities or people around me? Sometimes they put a label to me. Ndatone zita munharaunda, uya wekumitiswa, uya wekuzodai, uya wekuzodai. How do I come back from those setbacks?
Your closing remarks in the last segment, they really just sum it all up. Let not failure define you. Andisimukundikani, ndakakundikana.
Okay.
I went through it, yes. The first thing to do is to admit that failure happened. Well, sometimes life teaches us these lessons in a very hard way. You wanted your 10,000, but gorera topera wato kundikana, and you don't have it. Yet you had planned for it. You had written 10 things on your list. January, but at the end of the year, you see you've done nothing. So life will give you that rude awakening to say you planned this, but that's not how things worked. And so one of the things that we must do, number one, is to admit that what I wanted to do has not come to pass.
Okay.
Number two, you then sit down with yourself and have a very honest conversation. Chaita kuti nditadze kusvika padaifana kusvika chi.
Okay.
What has led to this failure? And I know, the Bible also says that the heart of man is deceitful above all things. Moyo wako kuna kutokunyebera. And you start then saying, ningidai pasina ningazodai, epapazodai, pazodai. You find all the excuses that you can find that then, let you know, sure, but sometimes you need to be, truthful with yourself and say, I didn't do well.
And when you allocate responsibility to everyone else except yourself, it puts you in your place where you no longer have control over that particular goal.
And mangwana unonozokeredza, the same thing. When those people that you were attributing your failure to are no longer there, and then what then do you do?
Okay.
Failure tells you what happened. It doesn't tell you who you are. And so you need to understand not to apportion blame to other people, not to apportion blame to circumstances. Yet those are contributing factors. They could actually be contributing factors into what happened. But then you also need to look at yourself and say, what was my role in me not being able to do what I needed to do? Did I not plan well? Did I overextend myself or overextend my vision, overextend my ambition? Because being ambitious is good, but did I go overboard with it? And that has caused the failure. So sometimes you might need to scale down. I wanted to do 500 chickens project, 500, but I have no capacity 500. You need to scale down and say, fine, 50.
With what I have right now, what can I do?
With what I have, what can I do? So that's re-strategizing, re-looking at your life and then saying, fine, this is how I should be able to do. And in life, we must always do that. Whenever we're doing a project, you do a project, you plan it out, you go, you test it out, you then implement. After implementing, you come back and evaluate. Evaluation is important because it helps you to understand the areas that were weaknesses within the chain link for you to get to where you wanted to go. Once you have evaluated, you get to a point where you then say, this was the weakest link. How do I address this little small thing so that the whole can be made successful?
Okay. These are actually steps that anyone is actually able to follow if they are being honest with themselves and they really want to achieve that particular goal. As we said, viewers, failure is indicating your inability to be able to achieve a certain goal. But that is not the end. Do you still want to achieve it? I think that's the question. Maybe it's a place for you to sit down and think about the planning process, is what Mr. Joshua Kumunda was sharing on. And within the planning process is something that I would want to just share a little bit. You know, where you're setting goals which are realistic. Realistic means you're looking at the environment that is around you and say, this is actually what I can do. Something which is measurable. By measurable, we're talking about the ability to actually be able to measure and see, am I proceeding in the way that I want to? Time bound as well. Is there a certain time that I'm allocating to this particular goal? So when we take that into account in our planning process and we're looking at goals which are smart, it helps us even when we fail. Mr. Joshua Kumunda, any last words for our viewers?
I think what you said really makes it very understandable. I want to speak to somebody who has failed. I want to speak to somebody who thinks they have failed. Because sometimes you think you have failed, yet you have actually gained a lot of experience that helps you to go where you need to go. I want to speak to that person who thinks that this is the end of life because I failed. I want to speak to that person who's dejected, who's not wanting to come out of their room because when they go out into the world looks at them and judges them. I want to speak out to that heart that is crying, where no one is listening, where no one knows what's going in your heart. I want to speak to you. I want to speak to you and let you know that you are not a failure. You've gone through a process. You've gone through a pain. You've gone through issues where everybody looks down upon you because you did not hit the mark. Guess what? You're not the only one who's gone through that. Even those that are pointing fingers at you, they have gone through the same process. They are going through the same process of failing in their private spaces. But maybe you failed in a very public area. The first thing you need to do is to own up and say, yes, I have failed. And if you need to take responsibility for what you have done or have gone through, take responsibility, hold your head up high and say, I have failed. And I'm going to be a man about it. I'm going to be a woman about it. I'm going to be a girl about it. I'm going to be a boy about it. And I'm going to face my failure. I'm not just going to face my failure. I'm going to learn from my failure. There are things that I've gone through. There's a journey I've walked. There are things I've seen that others have not seen. And because I've seen those things, because I've experienced those things, I am going to learn from those things. The nuggets I've picked up, I'm going to use them to become a better person. And guess what? When you've gone through that process, when you've gone through that pain, when you've gone through that experience, you come out a better person, even if you have not hit that mark. I want to tell you, and I want you to know, that your self-worth is not measured by what you have achieved or not achieved. Your self-worth is measured by how you look at yourself, how you define yourself, how you view yourself in the face of what the world might even perceive as failure. Because sometimes you have not failed, but you've just perceived the process you've gone through as failure. But it is not failure. It is not the end of the road. And I know someone is looking right now at the television now and is thinking, for me, this is the end. They are thinking what I've gone through has defined me. I have no reason to leave. Perhaps you have lost everything. Perhaps you have even lost relationships. Perhaps you've even lost your family because you failed morally and people judged you. I want you to understand that you can pick yourself up again. You can rebuild that company. You can rebuild that reputation. You can rebuild that name. You can stand again and be counted among many because you are important. You are God's beloved child. You are God's masterpiece. And God is not yet done with you. And when we look back Years later, you say, at that point, people called me a failure. But that was just the beginning of a greater journey, of a better journey, of a better way of doing things. I fell, but I fell forward.
I fell, but I fell forward. You can always pick yourself up, regardless of which area that you failed in. It could be morally, it could be family, it could be relationship, it could be financial. What did I learn through that process? Pick yourself up. Failure is not the end. Failure does not define you. Viewers, do join me in the next episode. In the meantime, let's continue on Wholeness. Thank you.